Well, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Harry Brailsford at SMB Nation. This is the last official webinar in 2016. Boy, howdy. Maybe by the end of this, some people want 2016 to be over. We'll see. We'll see. We're going to talk about Q4 and some things I think are relevant to discuss. Here's the good news. A little gift to you. It's going to run for 30 minutes today instead of 60 minutes. The nature of this conversation is I don't want to drag it out. We'll certainly take your questions at the end. The other thing is one individual reached out and said, well, aren't we having the virtual office party again, the world's largest virtual office party again? And I said, sir, join today's webinar and we'll rebrand this as the world's largest virtual office party again this year. Last year, you'll recall, we had the Geek Trivia quiz and so on. We had Carl Palachuk on. Carl is in Maui, so he respectfully declined. We have Tim Carlson on today joining us, and he's going to talk about some trends. And Tim, I want you to comment on any of the slides, not just the merger and acquisition slides at the back, but please pitch in as we talk about the election and some other topics. That makes my job easier. Tim, if you don't mind me asking, can you see my screen? I want to do a sound check real quick.
As a matter of fact, I see 4Q MSP Analyst report. Last webinar here.
Thank you.
Two little puppy
there you go. The future is cloud. For those of you that don't know SMB Nation, quite frankly, we have a large audience today. So thank you for taking time out just before the holiday weekend. For those of you that don't know us, we started in '99. We're technically in our 17th year. Jenny Hallmark over in the radio control room has been with us 10 years. And I think her date of hire is shortly after the first of the year. So how about that? We're going to have to update that cake photo to reflect the new number. SMB Nation participates in the technology industry in a wide range of areas, from CompTIA through the MVP program historically. So, and finally, get to know us by just Googling us under news and see how and where and why we've been featured, and track our own content at smbnation.com. Final housekeeping item is there will be another roadshow in 2017, and there's possibly a multi-day confab here in Seattle in October, so we're going to keep you posted on that. With that said, the agenda is before your very eyes, and what we need to do with the MSP report, and quite frankly, the world's largest virtual office party that we'll call this, we'd like to kind of make it an webinar. We're not top heavy on demos or slides. As promised, we're going to talk about the election, the economy of one, some basic analytics I think you should be mindful of in 17. A lesson I certainly learned this year. Tim was along for part of this journey and has a background in listening to social media trends. So Tim, I'll want to call on you when we talk about engagement. Doesn't necessarily lead to conversions. Portfolio adjustments, including M&A and Community Corner. So let's jump right into it on the election and analysis. And again, I promised you a slideshow. So there we go. I promised you a nonpartisan view, and that's exactly what I want to do. There's a great study out that I want you to go get. It's quite long. I read it. It's by ITIF, so you want to Google this, and I'm going to see you in the deck tomorrow with this webinar. Thank you. But it's called High Tech Nation, How Technology Innovation Shapes America's 435 Congressional Districts. And the report is quite well done, and it's a long one. It's definitely a couple bus rides. It hits it head on. It hits it head on about the coastlines having the tech centers, and then not so much in the middle of the country, and in my home state of Alaska, even less. So, but the good news is there is every congressional district can have technology innovation. So again, I'm going to give you the state of Alaska. It's a single congressional district that I know well. My ex-brother-in-law, Steve Lindbeck, came in a close second to Don Young in the election, and that's my sister's first husband. And Don Young won. He's been in office 40 years. It's hard to beat an incumbent, and especially in our with the year that we had. But with Alaska, for example, you can have a legitimate conversation about what Finland has done in terms of the engineering Finland has done with Nokia and other areas. It's the same latitude, same weather. Why can't Alaska do it? And quite frankly, why can't Alaska play towards its strengths, like Arctic engineering IoT, right? They know Arctic engineering like anybody's business. And I wanted to highlight that. Again, this is a good nonpartisan report that's timely. Tim, based on the way the results shook out about, I'm going to offer the haves and the have-nots, and rightfully so. Those were voices out there, Tim.
Yeah, I think considering the capabilities of media, in the modern era, I don't think anybody expected the collective media to get the results so wrong. And whether you like the results or not doesn't matter, but there's a bunch of really good discussion out there about how something like that would happen, other than they self-serve their own polls. And if you prefer one news outlet to another, what they got really good at is telling you kind of what you wanted to hear, so you'd keep coming back to that station and you were feeling pretty good about how everybody was thinking like you. And that is simply, that was the analysis of a media analysis that this is why we all missed it. We've self-selected our own news feeds, and everything is editorialized, and there is no fact-checking of polls because, well, as we've learned, fact-checking is a lost art. So I think it'll be interesting to see whether or not there's a change afoot, or whether, the channels that have decided what side of the table they're on remain so and continue to serve it up from their point of view. But I don't think I can't remember since the first time I cared about elections when I was a young kid and it was Nixon. They got it so wrong, so completely wrong. So
Tim, and what's interesting, and what's interesting, you've been introduced to the SMB Nation crowd again in the past, forgive me. But maybe something people don't know about your background is you're from the Midwest. I am not. I'm from the coast. So we ourselves are bringing two different perspectives. But you were in Iowa, I believe it was, and went to the University of Iowa. So
how you classify it, that's the Middle West. And, that's where things don't happen first. And, people carry opinions around. But the good news is that every little place, there's things going on, call centers and those sorts of things happen out in Des Moines. There's a lot more technology and usually these sort of state centers than people realize, and also around the universities. So there's plenty of opportunity. The coast does call the day, for sure. And that's also kind of the way it worked in the investment banking space, where I came from formerly, as well as the social media space. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. What I know is it's kind of how it happens. So I did want to see, and I haven't seen the results yet, but I'm sure everybody was aware that there was a big meeting at the Trump Tower where they had the Mr. Bezos and Mr. Musk and all of the pillars of the technology industry in to talk about.
Got it on the next slide. Hang on just a second. Yeah.
I did look at these this morning. I did.
Yeah.
But it'll be
no problem.
To see how that works, because I think if it turns out at all to be pro-business, there might be a silver lining here at some level.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about the Trump bomb. So here's the sort of the good, bad, and ugly on that is that I checked MarketWatch just a few minutes ago. The Dow is struggling to hit 20,000 today, but it's up 1,600 points since the election. So there is a Trump bump. Now, here's what that means for us in general and on Main Street as SMB IT providers. You can make money as a bull, you can make money as a bear, but you lose money when you're a pig and you want to get fat. And so, just stake out your position. A lot of indicators. Trump is inheriting a lot of leading economic indicators of unemployment at 4.6. I think job growth was 2.3 last month. He's inheriting a robust report card that's bullish. Now, here's the contrast with that is there's some of you in the audience, as far as your delivery of IT services and people buying more laptops and services, that's great. As an investor, you might actually think about a short position because, Tim, you come from this world, but boy, howdy, 20,000. I would start to be thinking about a portfolio short position. And Tim, maybe, you can, this was your world, man, but the worst you can do is just sense nothing and be a pig and get fat because those guys.
Well, the way it works, right? I mean, and formally I learned this in the 90s when I was basically a retirement analyst for Fidelity Investments. And if any of you know the Big Green Machine in Boston, they have sector funds, and sector funds are, by their nature, required to remain in a sector. So it's transportation, it's manufacturing, it's tech, and invariably every year a sector fund or two would be in the top 5, and that's because there were 24 sectors. So sooner or later, one sector would heat up while another one cooled off. What this feels like right now with this recent run is it's what we used to call Fidelity rotation risk, meaning most of the upside is out of this market, and until earnings catch up, you'll see money start to move to places that are out of favor or simply have more upside left in them. So to Harry's point, none of us are going to sit around and tell you what to do, but thinking about just how much yield or gain could be left in this marketplace is important, and that's really the logic behind the dollar cost averaging or an index play, because you don't buy as much when it's up, you buy more when it's down, and I don't know if that construes in any way back to your business, but I know it's never been cheaper to borrow money as a company, and borrowing money to buy services is certainly, I would think on every CFO's mind. So I think green light to go push for the order, fellas.
Yeah, in fact, this is Robin Robbins' take, and I'm going to talk about her more in the economy of one, which is, Tim, that's actually where we end up in a couple of slides. But Robin's take, a thought leader in our community, was on Trump. She has a good blog up on LinkedIn, and it basically came down to he could do a lot of good for business. The economy could thrive, or he could screw up everything up and put us into a serious recession. And Tim, I'll introduce you personally to Robin sometime. She's one of a kind. Let's move on. We had the tech execs meet with Trump. Tim, go ahead and own that topic. I had a couple of thoughts, but go for it.
There's really nothing to talk about other than the fact that those who were cynical of it sort of thought that it felt like an episode of The Apprentice where he told everybody how amazing they were and then didn't feel like they needed to report anything else out. I'm not an insider in any way. What I did hear was that there is a consideration afoot to pull jobs back and to incentivize businesses to do that somehow without the heavy hand of government, but more on an incentive line basis. And I think he wants to hear what the tech community has to say about that, because, it's all there for them. So, I think all we can do is say, might have just been for show, but it would sure be good if we could help make some of the calls or incentivize the tax programs to work better and bring some of that work home. That's my summarization of it.
Very cool. Let's move on. Economy one. So Carl Palachuk, a thought leader in our community, who's in Maui this year and not on this call. I hope he's listening, by the way, out of professional courtesy. But he had some thought leadership pieces post-election, nonpartisan pieces that basically were about, to me, at the end of the day, you got to take personal responsibility for how you're going to make it. everyone on this call runs a small business, and you can't. You can be disappointed. You can complain. You can do this. You can do that. But at the end of the day, it's an economy of one. And Robbins, in that same blog called Trump, kind of reiterated that bottom line is, guys, just go sell stuff. Tim, which is what you were getting to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All they can say is next quarter, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. Next slide. I want to make mention of our generous supporters, Tim, the people that support us so we can support the community. Today we're underwritten by Infrascale and Trend Micro. And what's interesting about this is they're better together. I don't know if they would see it quite that way. So this is just my own language. But Trend Micro is well known for its antivirus and security protection. And Infrascale is well known for its backup and disaster recovery approaches. And you need a multi-vector protection strategy in IT, of course. And they're friends of the family. Tim, they're friendly to MSPs and SMB Nation members. So we appreciate their support to, I like to say, keep us on the air.
Mm-hmm. Well, they understand.
Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tim.
They understand the value of the SMB marketplace. If you're a big established company, then the war for selling services is pretty high. But growth comes from where we all live, and those are the next cool companies. And so they're dedicated to the space, and we're fortunate to have them sponsor us, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, this is my favorite slide, and then we're going to quickly get to Tim's favorite slide, and then toast our glasses high for the year. Basic analytics. So, folks, you know that I've used the last year, if not two, to talk about the analytics field. And in the third quarter report, you'll recall I had some conversations about earnings where Tableau was a no-no, and they had missed hard on earnings. They've now missed hard 3 quarters in a row. We've already had that talk. There's going to be winners and losers in the big data field. So we already had that chit-chat. But what I want to talk to you today, and be excited about analytics in 17, is, I don't know how to put it delicately, but you already own analytical tools. You already own this stuff. So let's just take GoToWebinar that we're on right now. Tim, the reporting, most people, don't use the reports that are built in. So the performance reports will show engagement. And by that it means it's tracking, if you have a dual monitor and we lose the focus on the primary monitor where GoToWebinar is running, we know that. We know that you were not interested. You're checking emails on monitor 2. Web analytics. So it reports some of the same information, but it presents it as a dashboard, which is really cool. So you already since own that. A lot of people use, GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar. Unbounce. So the unbounce landing pages and forms. Forms are everything in lead generation and big data. And I actually do want you to talk about that last point that we'll get to about engagement and some of your time in the social media analytics area. But forms are everything, guys, and you can do simple A/B testing to see what form's hot and what form's not. Same thing with MailChimp. Today, a shout out to MailChimp, the email package for A/B testing. Send out one variation of a newsletter to half your group, send out another variation to the other half. That's it. That's big data, guys. I mean, that's analytics. That's it. And then finally, Hootsuite has an analytics button. They call it beta. They still, 2 years later, I don't think they've updated the UI because it's most certainly usable and useful. But over on the left in Hootsuite, you'll see analytics beta. That's a hell of a beta period, but it provides very basic analytics at a minimum, and you can dig deeper. So Tim, you worked in a startup for some time in the social area and the analytics area. you and I have had this talk. You and I looked at an investment in a company that had a large LinkedIn population. We politely declined to move forward with that individual. And what we learned, this is my version of the truth, and then I'll let you, tell you what you knew over at the social company. But Tim, what we learned when we did a stress test was just having 200,000-300,000 people in a LinkedIn group did not lead to conversions when we made an offer, man. I was shocked. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, so for some reason, I think my screen just shut down, but I'm going to go from memory here, Harry. What I will tell you.
The topic is engagement does not mean conversion. Go ahead.
It's worse than that. They're spinning the dial out there. The advertising community is going to do everything it can right now to convince the purchasers of advertisement that an eyeball or a touch or a page click or some kind of behavior that can be monitored is fantastic news and great for the brand and going forward. And so if you pull back to 10,000 feet and you look at what the NFL is talking about, which is they're losing the millennial crowd. They're not watching football. They're going to soccer. If you have a product that requires people pay attention, and all of a sudden the classic places where you find audience have moved, radically moved, you're in trouble. And if you don't believe it, sit down with a team, an ad team at one of the big agencies or medium agencies, and what you're going to wind up doing is talking to and I'm just going to say it, a 30-something that will tell you how important all of these metrics and measurables are, and that this is where all the drivers are, and the business common sense or the acumen isn't simply there. So this is an industry that is really wide open right now. They don't know what to do, and for those who want to argue that, that's great, but the results are in. When you look at the rate of return on investment for a typical ad campaign, it's just not good. And the reason it's not good is because social media is now too crowded, it's messy, and it's unedited, and so people recognize those things. However, with people watching TV less and less and less, I see no end in sight to people continuing to pretend that an eyeball casually glancing at a website is, a successful ad campaign. I mean, I think we're going to continue to hear that until there's some way to do it. And when you have a presidential candidate or whatever who tweets, 166 characters of unedited information that's recycled by the news media to make me pay attention to a point of view is ridiculous. And yet, I think all of us better plan on tolerating that because it simply is how it's getting done right now. And I don't think it's good, but it is what it is. So.
Well, and that's the key point is it is what it is. I think, folks, if in the next several days you're going to make your 2017 resolution, and if you could just, I don't need you to be a data scientist. Carl Palachuk, once again, vacationing in Maui, unable to join us this year. Carl, if you're listening. But he's doing the Microsoft, they call it a professional degree. It's an online data science, it's a certificate, and he's doing that. And that's hardcore, man. That's like Python and R. I mean, that's a place you and I don't want to go. But no one on this call wants to go there. Pythons will bite you. But if you could just do one thing analytically this next year with a tool you already own, I think you'll be surprised. And if all it is Microsoft Excel and you create a pivot table
right.
to analyze data, then you've met your annual goal. Let's move on. My hope and desire is to keep this to be a shorter webinar. Tim, this is your slide. So for those that haven't been on our 3 M&A webinars this past year, thank you. Why don't you talk about your background, your role? I'm going to go on mute. What services you have provided to the community this year. And then I want to talk about the conversation that you and I had 2 days ago about now the conversation shifting to implementation assistance. And so rock on, Tim.
Okay, so just to summarize really quickly, I come from financial services since really the late 1980s when I got out of college. And I've worked in almost every role, what you call the sell side and the buy side, for venture and for investment banking. And Harry and I, by sheer coincidence as neighbors, were talking about succession planning for small business owners. It's Harry's life, and what happens to SMB Nation 15 years from now, 10 years from now. Long and short of it is we started talking to the community, that'd be you, about M&A and what's the exit look like. And so we put together an offering, and the offering's pretty simple. If you're interested in trying to grow by merger or grow by acquisition, or you're interested in selling with an earnout that enhances your retirement play, we thought we would offer that service as sort of a matchmaking and consulting service out to the community. And it actually was quite a year. Probably 50 different companies all told talked with us about either acquiring or selling through or merging, and a couple of them are quietly down that path currently. There were a couple of interesting things, though, that did come up, and I just want to share with everybody. Along that journey, I bumped into a number of companies that were interested in assimilating small ESPs and service providers in this category, and I just want to share with you the numbers were grim, meaning that they wanted profitable quarters immediately. They were discount to revenue of
I remember those meetings.
Yeah, 50%. Oh, and this is a no cash purchase. So the reason that most of you didn't hear about that is because Harry and I refused to take that kind of offer to the street. We consider that predatory. We think that there's no room for that, and it doesn't make any sense for you guys to hear that. So be careful when your phone rings and it's a solicitor who's got a big company he can't or she can't tell you about yet, but boy, oh boy, and then send me your numbers. There's still some cleanup in this marketplace that needs to occur. And so I'm just here to tell you, you don't have to accept terms like that. You'd all be better off finding your like-minded partner or next of kin or an old competitor and putting the two companies together and get yourself to that $1 million a year revenue spot, because the world for some reason changes then. Finally, and I want to be mindful of time, it's hard to find perfect fits, and it's going to be real hard work when you do find an acquisition target that works or a merger that works. And sometimes you're going to have to grow and stretch out of your comfort zone a little bit in order to get to that revenue place, or continue to call your shots, continue to do everything you're doing your way, and you want to solve the problem of what do I do when I want to walk out the door other than shut her down. So we don't have all the answers. We certainly don't have somebody standing in the sidelines going, I've got nothing but money and I want to buy as many of these as I can fairly. That's not what's out there. There's more work to it. But there's a move afoot. So, stay posted and give us a call, and we'll tell you honest to God what we're seeing and then what we're not seeing. So I think that's it. It's a heck of a year.
Well, Tim, and I want to hook the meeting we were in on Tuesday. Actually, I've been in a couple of the meetings. You were in the Tuesday meeting about the importance of pre- and post-acquisition implementation issues, conversion issues. And it's not just a database conversion. It's not Salesforce to Dynamics CRM. We're not just talking an IT conversion. But your thoughts on that, because that's something we're going to start to emphasize more in 17.
Well, ideally, if you absorb a business that makes sense, or you merge with one so that 1 and 1 equals 3, there needs to be a really thoughtful to-do list, because you're going to have to divide and conquer on the work. And there are those who have gone before you. And what you want to do is leverage SMB. We've got 2 types of ways in which to walk you through that acquisition process, pre and post. Yep, it's a to-do list, but it's a working to-do list. And if you get yourself to that place, know that it's easier than you think once you get started, and that it can be done correctly and well within 90 days, assuming that you begin with the end in mind, ahead of the absorption acquisition or merger. But we thought long and hard about this because we see it as the one thing that could slow down, a management team now coming together. And so when and if that makes some sense, please reach back out, and we will introduce you to those who have done this dozens and dozens of times.
Yep, absolutely. Let's see, Tim. Let's move on. We did promise about a 30-minute webinar. Hang on a sec. I do have some questions, so let's just jump right into those. Folks, definitely toast your glasses high, because this is the holiday party. Boy, we're a lot of fun, Tim.
I don't know about you, but I've had a cup of coffee. I'm not ready for champagne yet, but please do.
I was going to say, we're on the West Coast. The East Coast could pinch it.
Go for a run.
They're coming up on. Yeah, the East Coast, they could pinch it. And in Europe, I'm assuming we always have a couple guys from Dublin on the webinar. Let's see, I'm getting some questions, quite frankly. I'm getting some questions about the webinar system. So I'm actually not getting the normal questions. All questions are good questions, but I'm not getting the Tim, not the type. I might direct some people to Jenny or to go to Webinar Help Desk. So with that said, folks, I think the deck is clear. What I'm going to do is wish you a very Merry Christmas and Kwanzaa and Happy Holidays and whatnot and Happy New Year. We will see you early in 2017. Thank you for participating as always, and look forward to good times ahead. Tim, hey, thanks for taking some time out of your day, Tim, to join us. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Happy holidays.
All right. Have a great day, folks. Bye-bye.